Long ball is going to go for a touchdown. The game's over. Webster Trotter.
Metcalf will go for the score. Unbelievable.
45-40. Run, William, run. He's got blockers in front. 5. Touchdown. Joshua Cribbs turns disaster into a score.
Sight wants it all on this one for Logan, and he is there.
Jim Brown to the 30. Jim Brown is going to go in for another touchdown.
The Cleveland Browns select Baker Mayfield.
Wow.
It is Baker Mayfield.
I woke up feeling dangerous.
Hello, Cleveland. Welcome to another episode of 1085 Gridiron. I am your host, Anthony Joki. As always, I got my co-host, Shaq McCurry, with me. But today, we are going to jump right into our special interview this week. We have Jake Trotter of ESPN. He covers the Browns for their ESPN NFL Nation. So we are going to jump right into this. Jake is gracious with his time, and we're very thankful that he was able to join us, give us some insight about the season and the game coming up against the 49ers on Monday night. Here is Mr. Jake Trotter. All right, it is our honor to be joined by Jake Trotter. He is an ESPN NFL Browns reporter. Jake, I appreciate you coming back on. You joined us before the season. How has your transition been so far? Because you came from a college crazy town, covering Baker in Oklahoma. You finally got to fully experience what Cleveland fans are like. How could you compare the two fan bases throughout the first month of the season that you've been here?
Well, one thing I've learned is Browns fans don't ever overreact, right? I mean, the sky was definitely not falling after week 3. It's a little bit of a joke there, but it kind of just underscores the passion that Cleveland fans have for their team. Kind of felt like there was no hope after the Rams lost when you put everything into context. First-year head coach, new star player at wide receiver. You knew this team was figuring some things out, and yet they almost beat the defending NFC champions at the end there. So I think for all the consternation about the offense, that they were, if they could beat Baltimore, then they would be in terrific shape after the quarter pole of the season. And that's exactly what happened. Figured out some things offensively. Didn't try to force too much to Odell. Got the running game going, got under center more. And I think this is a closer version of what you're going to see from the Browns offensively. And listen, I mean, for Cleveland fans, they may lose Monday night at San Francisco. It's not going to be a linear season in terms of the success. But I do think that this team is going to continue to get better. And the good part for them is the schedule is going to get easier at the same time. But, yeah, I mean, it's been a lot of fun covering this team. It's been a blast being at the first 2 home games. The crowd has been awesome at both of them, and you can't turn a corner without seeing a Baker Mayfield jersey somewhere or, a Browns hat or Browns gear. So the town is definitely fired up for this team.
And they're still piecing together this offense. We're going to week 5. They have not been fully healthy yet. Antonio Callaway's been suspended. He's coming back this week. Hopefully they have Rashard Higgins this week. Denzel Ward, Greedy Williams have been out on the defense. Talk about how they've been able to overcome the suspension and all these injuries and kind of slowly taking their time with Higgins, Ward, and Williams getting back into the fold of things.
Yeah, I mean, defensively, T.J. Carey and Terrence Mitchell have been fantastic. You were a little bit concerned in that Rams game with the entire defensive backfield being out, the starting defensive backfield, and the backups played terrifically. And then Baltimore, the backup corners did a terrific job again against a really speedy wide receiver core. So I think that, the guys that they've needed to step in and fill in have done a great job. Ricky Seals-Jones for Njoku last weekend with a couple of big catches. You've seen Damian Ratley make a play here or there. So they've done a good job treading water. Now you've got, Jarvis Landry's not going to miss a game. You've got Callaway. You potentially have Higgins. At some point, before the end of time, Greedy Williams and Denzel Ward, their hamstrings are going to heal, and you're going to be more healthy than you've been. The important part for me was, can they get to the New England game? After the New England game, could they be 3-4 worst case? Because if you're 3-4, then you look at the schedule going forward, and you've got 5 games against teams that have yet to win a game. When you talk about Cincinnati, Miami, Denver, and Arizona, you have Pittsburgh twice, who just won their first game of the season against Cincinnati. I mean, you've got a lot of wins that you can find on the schedule after that point. If you could just kind of be in the mix close to 500, then I think you set yourself up to have a really nice second half finish to the season. And, part of that has been the backup guys, holding their own while some of these starters come back from the injuries.
Yeah, I was analyzing the schedule the other day, and after that New England game, I can't see a game where they're not going to be favored, and that just goes to show, the first part of the schedule, the first half, it has been really tough, but I guess we got a favor, mostly due to Roethlisberger being out for the season, of kind of that the second half of the schedule being very easy. One of the major questions that a lot of Browns fans have had, and you kind of spoke to it a little bit the last time you were on with us, we've kind of been wondering where Genard Avery is, and I want to give credit to you, because when you were on last time with us, you were talking about Chad Thomas and how this Browns coaching staff was really high on him, and he's starting to show everybody on the field the things he can do, and not being inactive for pretty much every game like he was last season. But it's come at the cost of Genard Avery, who's trying to transition into the Steve Wilkes defense. Do you have any answer of what's going on with Genard Avery?
The answer is they feel better about Chad Thomas. I mean, you can only keep so many guys on the active list. You've only got 46 spots, and you only have so many pass rushers that you can put on there. And if Chad Thomas is going to play in those obvious passing downs, then Avery is just going to be a backup. So basically it comes down to the fact that they just like Chad Thomas better for that role right now than they do Genard Avery. And Thomas was a guy they invested a high draft pick in. That was a guy that I heard all offseason that, despite the fact that he was a non-factor last year, he was a guy they really still believed in. He was a little bit banged up during training camp, but he kept hearing still a guy that they had big plans for. So I think it's just a question of, not that they dislike Avery, but Chad Thomas is the guy in that spot right now.
All right, this coming Monday night, obviously taking on the 49ers. They're back on primetime football with Monday Night Football. And we want to get what your keys to the game are, because, they go into this game kind of starting to get some guys healthy. There's still a question of where a couple guys might be out. When you look at this game against the San Francisco 49ers, what's the biggest X factor on offense and defense that they're going to have to prepare for?
I mean, I really think it starts with the running game on both sides of the ball. And Freddie Kitchens, I asked him, I think this week, what are the keys, to carrying over what you did in Baltimore? And they said it's not really that complicated of a game, in my opinion. It comes down to who runs the ball better, who stops the run, and who doesn't turn the ball over. And, I think that's oversimplifying things, obviously. But, if they can get Nick Chubb going against that run defense, the number one ranked run defense in the NFL, then I think San Francisco's in a lot of trouble. So I would expect Cleveland to come out and try to get Nick Chubb going again, because that just sets everything else up, takes pressure off Mayfield, in terms of actual pressure and then the pressure to carry the offense. It sets up Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham, and it restores balance to the offense. And then, the other side of the ball, you feel pretty good about your chances if you can stop that San Francisco running game. So I think, particularly getting Nick Chubb involved early and often, that was the biggest difference between the fourth game and the previous three. And they had run the ball effectively at times, but it just never felt like it was very consistent. And that was something that was different in Baltimore, and you saw the rest of the offense really feed off that. Nick Chubb, to me, I don't know if he's an X factor, because he's obviously going to be a big part of the game plan, but he is a guy that I think is going to dictate what happens. If he has a good game, that's a really good sign for the Browns. And if he is, 14 carries for 22 yards, that's a really good sign for the 49ers.
The 49ers have a lot of first-round picks invested in that defensive front of theirs. They have 5 of them. And do you have confidence that they'll be able to get this running game going this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it kind of depends what the 49ers want to do. I think they're going to look at that Baltimore film and think, well, Cleveland has kind of figured out that if Odell Beckham is double-teamed or, he's got help, that they have other ways they can go offensively. So is that what we want to do? Because that did not work for the Ravens. So it kind of depends on what San Francisco wants to do. But they do have 5 former first-round draft picks along that defensive line, like really talented up front. So I think either way it's going to be tough. But listen, if San Francisco wants to stack the box, then I think if you're the Browns, you feel just fine about that. And I think that was, the upside of this team the whole time was, if you want to take one thing away, we've got something else to throw at you. It's not like, probably years before with Cleveland, if you take one player away, you're pretty much sunk. I mean, they've got 3 or 4 other guys that can hurt you. And I think that, the key for Cleveland is, okay, let's see what they're doing and let's play off that and take what the defense is giving us instead of trying to force the ball somewhere or try to force a running game that might not be there. There's going to be somebody open that can make plays on this Browns offense, whether it's Nick Chubb, Jarvis Landry, or Odell Beckham. And I think that, how the 49ers play this game is going to dictate a lot of what the Browns end up doing.
I loved Odell Beckham's quote today from the press conference talking about how he doesn't care about stats. It's all about getting that team win. And, talk about a little bit of his attitude because, he's gotten that reputation for being a diva. But so far, through the first month of the season and through training camp as well, he's been quite the model citizen. And, it seems like it's a completely different person. And that might be because Jarvis Landry is here as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Odell's really enjoying being on this team. He has a great rapport, obviously, with Jarvis going back to when they were at LSU. And then, has a, really good relationship with Baker Mayfield preceding the trade. So I think that, it seems like just watching him from afar, he gets along with a lot of guys on the team. And I think that that's, created a really nice locker room, for him to be in.
As we wrap up here, we put a poll out earlier today on our Twitter account what Browns fans think the record is going to be entering the bye week with 4-2, 3-3, 2-4. Why don't you give us your prediction for this game against San Francisco, and then what you think they'll end up going into the bye week with?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think they'll be 3-4. I'm not sure if it's going to be the San Francisco game or the Seattle game they lose. I think they've got a terrific chance to win Monday. I saw that the line was 3.5. That seems really high to me for a 49er team that, you look at who they played so far this year. I'll say they lose on Monday night, but play pretty well and then come back and beat the Seahawks at home. How about that?
I'll go with that because so far I am 0-2 of my season tickets going to games this year, so I can't afford them to go 0-3 for my first 3 games this season. All right, Jake.
It's funny. I think I picked the Browns to win online, so maybe I should reverse that. So I'll pick them to beat San Francisco and then lose to the Seahawks. How about that?
All right. You sometimes you gotta be superstitious and do things like that.
Well, you got to be consistent.
True. Yeah, this is true. Jake, I really appreciate the time you've given us. I know you're busy. I appreciate the time you took out of your day to join us. If you want to go ahead and plug your Twitter account where everybody can read you, go ahead.
Yeah, Jake _Trotter.
All right, Jake. I appreciate it, and thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, sounds good, guys. Take care.
Well, we certainly appreciate Jake joining us again on the podcast. I hope you guys all enjoyed what he had to say. Jake's a busy guy, and we're very grateful that he took time out of his day to come on here and discuss the Browns and what he thinks is going to be happening. Heading into the bye week, he thinks we're going to be 3-3. He thinks we're going to possibly, win this game on Monday night, lose the one to Seattle. But Jack, let's dive in a little bit more into the San Francisco game. What to you is your biggest key to the game when you look at this 49ers team who has a good running game? They have a very good play caller in Kyle Shanahan, and they have a quarterback who's been really trying to get back into the groove of everything after coming back from his ACL injury.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Kyle Shanahan's offenses over the years, it's pretty much predicated on the run, and then that sets up the play action. It pretty much sets up their whole passing attack. They signed Tevin Coleman in the offseason, and he was supposed to be, their big go-to threat in the backfield, and he's unfortunately been injured for them, but they've had Matt Breida, Raheem Mostert, and then Jeff Wilson all step up and contribute, and they have one of the top rushing attacks in the league. And obviously, the Browns' run defense has been strong so far through the beginning of the season. And they stopped Todd Gurley. They maintained the Ravens' running attack last week. Their only hiccup was Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry's one of the top backs in the league, obviously. But if the Browns can, limit the 49ers running attack on Monday night, then it's going to put them in a situation where they can win this game, because it's going to have to force Jimmy to throw, and it's going to keep him on his toes, obviously, against our pass rush. Jimmy gets the ball out quickly. He's one of the top guys in the league at doing that. But if he has to rely on his arm and not be able to lean on that running game, then it could spell bad news for the 49ers offense.
We talked a little bit with Jake how, it's finally starting to seem like we could have everybody healthy on offense. Jarvis Landry was cleared from the concussion protocol today. Antonio Callaway, is back from his suspension. It is possible that we could have Rashard Higgins on Monday night. As we start to integrate all these pieces into the offense, now that people are getting healthy and Callaway is coming off his suspension, we still have Kareem Hunt, who's still suspended. But if they're able to have their full strength at the wide receiving core going into Monday night, how much do you expect them to get some of these guys who have been out involved early to get them into the flow of the game, just to kind of get their feet wet a little bit?
Yeah, I definitely would expect it. That Higgins has been out since week 1. Callaway hasn't seen any time. I'm sure they're going to sprinkle them in and then just let the flow of the game dictate like how many reps they're going to get. Obviously, you want to get Jarvis involved, you want to get Beckham involved, and if you can sprinkle those guys in, it's going to keep the 49ers to have their defense be honest. Like, as talented as they are up front, they can pressure all they want, but there's come a point where they're going to have to focus on the passing game, and then that might have them back off, sending a blitz after Baker. And then once if that happens, then we can unleash Chubb on the 49ers, and then they haven't given up a rushing touchdown yet. I'm sure Nick Chubb wants to make that happen Monday night. He wants to be the first one to do it. So if we can sprinkle some of the new guys in while keeping the offense flowing, it could spell trouble for the 49ers. So this is their biggest test offensively so far this season. And, if we can bring our combined threat only in the running game and the passing game, the 49ers might not know what to do. This could be their first test of adversity on the defensive side of the ball, because they have not seen an offense like this just yet this year.
Yeah, Jake was surprised that the spread is at 3.5 at this point. He thinks that's a little high for this 49ers team. But they are undefeated, and it does not. It's not an easy thing to win 3 in a row in the NFL. They had their bye week early. They've had 2 weeks to prepare for the Browns. But I even with that talented front, I think that this offense just has way too many weapons on it to, be forced to only play one aspect of their game. The play action pass is going to be important. The screen game to Nick Chubb, even the screen game to guys like Antonio Callaway or Odell Beckham on the outside, I think will be very helpful in slowing down that pass rush this week. That'll also help with the running game as well. So I think there's many different ways that Freddie Kitchens and Todd Monken are going to be able to slow down that pass rush, and you just hope that guys like Chris Hubbard and Greg Robinson are able to have decent games. And we've seen them kind of gel a little bit over the last few weeks, and hopefully they can continue to do that. Jack, as we kind of move forward here, do you have any other major keys to the game? Anything that you really have your eye on in terms of it being a crucial part of this game on Monday night?
No, I just think like the biggest thing, they have to pressure Jimmy Garoppolo. I seen a stat on Twitter, and I forget where it came from, but when Garoppolo gets pressured so far this year, he is only completing 50% of his passes, which shows me that he tends to get a little rattled when he faces pressure. At more than a little rattled, obviously he's only at 50%. So, if our pass rush, we've seen flashes of it. I really think this is the game where they can break out and have the dominating performance, a game like the Tampa game in the preseason where they just get after the quarterback. Yeah, Jimmy G gets the ball out quickly, but if they can get after him and rattle him big time, I think this could be the game where the defense, finally says, hey, we got an explosive offense, but we also got this explosive defense that can, shut offenses down. And, obviously all eyes are going to be on Myles Garrett against that rookie left tackle, Justin School. So if they can do that, I think that'll be the key, and that'll separate, the Browns from ultimately winning, but showing that they are a top force in the NFL.
All right, Jack. Who do you got winning this game and why?
I'm going with the Browns. I think, last week, was a big win. I wouldn't say it was a signature win, but that was a big win to silence the critics against beating Baltimore. And I think, the Browns have momentum. I think they have a chip on their shoulder, and I think they carry that into this game. They're under the bright lights again. They've played well so far when the eyes have been on them since the Tennessee game. They played Monday night against the Jets. They played a Sunday night game against the Rams where they played well, just not well enough. And then, last week, all eyes were on them again in Baltimore, and, they put the foot on Baltimore and didn't let off. And I think they do it again. It'll be interesting to see how good this 49ers team is. I think they are very good. They haven't played any of their division rivals yet. So they're going to have a tough stretch. I do think this is going to be a close game, though. I don't expect the Browns to blow out San Fran, just because I think San Fran is talented on both sides of the ball, especially their defense. But I do think that the Browns want it more, and I do think they'll come away victorious. I say it's a close game. I'm going Browns 31, 49ers 27.
Yeah, I'm going with the Browns on this one too. I just think that after last week, how things looked, and the pieces that they're adding back into this team this week, once you start to build a little bit of momentum and you're able to add to it, add some of these players back, find what's comfortable, find what works, hone in on what's working. I just think that this offense is really going to start to hit the gas pedal and go full go to what we really think it can be. We got a glimpse of it last week, and we got a good taste of it. And I think it could be even better than that. I don't know if it's going to be better than that this week, but it's going to be well enough to win. And I think the Browns are going to win this one 27-23. I am fairly confident that we're going to be going into the bye week at the minimum 3-3. We put up that poll today, Jack, of what record do you think the Browns will have going to the bye week? Nobody has said 2-4, so they're confident we're going to win one of these two games, whether it be against San Francisco or whether it's against Seattle. Do you agree with that? We're going to win at least one of these? Well, obviously, since you said San Francisco is going to, or the Browns are going to beat San Francisco, but can you pretty much guarantee we're going to win one of these two games?
Oh, yeah. I mean, unless, we hit some kind of adversity and just completely fall flat on our face, that's the only way we go 2-4. I think this team's too talented to where they can't beat at least one of San Francisco and Seattle. Not to say that San Francisco and Seattle are going to, bow down to the Browns. It's going to be a tough battle, but I do expect the Browns to at least be 500 going into the bye week.
How crazy is it that the Browns could have their third road win before they have their first home win? I think that just speaks volumes to what this team is really all about and how they really focus when it really matters.
Absolutely. But, it's crazy that they could be 3-0 on the road and then still not have won a home game yet this year. But the good thing is we're at home for the majority of the second half of the year, and that's good because when it gets down to those crucial games where we could be fighting for a playoff spot, that's when I think you're going to see the dog pound at full force. And, that's what we need. We need that home field advantage to help us in those crucial games against when the playoffs are on the line potentially.
If we go into the bye week 3-3, do you realize how important that game against New England is going to be in determining the impact that game is going to have in terms of playoff position and potentially having home field in playoffs?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's going to be a big game. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I'm fully expecting Romo and Nance to be calling that game. It's at 4:25. It's going to be the national game of the week. Potential playoff matchup, possibly an AFC championship preview. Don't want to get too far ahead with that, but let's just focus on San Fran and right now, and then we'll focus on Seattle next week and so on and so on. Take it one game at a time, Anthony. It's a long season.
Yeah, I know. If they're 4-2, can that game get flexed to Sunday night? I don't know who the Sunday night game is that week, but it could get flexed, right?
It could be, but I tend to think CBS will fight for that game because the storylines, all that, it's too good for CBS to let go without a fight.
All right. In relation to our pick'em contest, Jack does have a 10-point lead. We both did get Seattle right last night, so he still has that 10-point lead. But who is your lock of the week this week?
Well, since Miami's on the bye week, we can't pick them, whoever they're playing. So I'm going to go with Philly. They're playing the Jets. The Jets are still shorthanded at quarterback. Sam Darnold isn't ready quite yet. So no offense to Luke Falk and those guys in New York. You got to go with the Eagles. They are playing some excellent ball to start the season. Carson Wentz is playing at an MVP level, which a lot of people predicted at the beginning of the season. And their defense is pretty darn dominant as well. So fly, Eagles, fly. They're going to whoop on them Jets this weekend.
You are definitely right in the fact that I will never be picking Kirk Cousins again. So the Minnesota Vikings are out. My lock of the week is going to be New England on the road at Washington. I know Colt McCoy is starting this game. Colt McCoy is 1-0 against the Patriots. If you remember that massive Peyton Hillis game from, how many years ago was that? 7, 8 years ago already? 9 years ago. God, we're old. At least it feels that way. But there's no way New England loses this game on the road in Washington. There's just no way. So the Patriots are my lock of the week this week. All right, Jack. Did I forget anything before we get out of here?
You're good to go, buddy.
All right. You can follow Jack on Twitter at JMcCurryCLE. You can follow me on Twitter at Anthony Jokey, JOKI. You can follow the podcast at 1085 on at 1085 Gridiron on Twitter and on Facebook. You can find our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Play. With all that, we'll be back Monday postgame after the game, Jack.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll be back after the game on Monday night. Hopefully, we can sound our third alarm in terms of victory pod for the year, and most importantly, go Browns.